Consider my pickle most thoroughly tickled. A 54% average audience score for Batman Caped Crusader. Yes! This is, oh god, I have a difficult time actually pointing out and explaining how gratifying this actually is, because as I mentioned in my review of the Caped Crusader, I was quite genuinely so worried the skin suit here would be just about thick enough to the point where the average entertainment enjoyer would not be able to see through it, and down to the bloody, beaten, bruised body of Batman beneath it. Because that is all it is. Caped Crusader has precisely one episode of actual Batman-ness in the entire first season. One episode that harkens back to the glory days of the animated series. And more and more I think about it, I feel as if Caped Crusader was a deliberate attempt at subterfuge. It was an intentional maskirovka to try and trick you into thinking that you were watching old school Batman, to try and fool you into believing that you were getting the Batman you once knew and loved. The entire marketing scheme behind it, oh, it's Bruce Timm's return to classic old school noir Batman. Isn't that going to be amazing? And yeah, that sounds fantastic. Too bad that isn't what we actually got. But it does have the veneer of it, a thin layer of deliberately applied paint on top of the rotting carcass. And I was quite genuinely worried the stench would not reach through and into the viewer's nostrils, and I am very happy I was wrong on that count. 54%. Beautiful. Should be lower, but still pretty good. And here's the thing too, the reason why I say deliberate subterfuge is because they didn't make a Bruce Timm Batman series, even though it was made by Bruce Timm. This is a remarkable example of a creator himself forgetting the thing he created, as excellently illustrated by Harley Quinn, for example. This was a character that Bruce Timm made himself, and yet in this show she is not Harley Quinn at all. The only thing she has is the actual skin suit. I mean, this character's entire idea is that she's basically a findom, in essence, making all of those evil rich white men give away their money and then commit suicide. Okay, that could be intriguing, I do suppose, using psychology as a weapon in sort of a twisted Robin Hood-y sense, but if that's the case, why on God's good earth is she wearing a clown costume? What's the motivation here whatsoever? Unless you wanted to have the name recognition of Harley Quinn without actually having Harley Quinn, as even this redesign looks far superior, but immediately you see this is a more vivid character. She's brighter, she's more interesting looking, she's more visually appealing than this bag of vomitousness. Again, a creator forgetting his own creation, but an interesting article that came out here. Batman Caped Crusader came out of a pitch to revisit Bruce Timm's classic animated series. Again, that was the lie. That was the mask that they pulled on to go like, oh hey, you should totally watch this. Why? Well, it's old school Batman. Really? No. And this one, I literally clapped, says the professional seal, when I saw the Penguin was a woman and heard Minnie Driver doing her voice. It was an unexpected and wonderful surprise. Why did you make that choice? That is a very good question. Why did you make that choice? Tim, James and I were talking about the overview of the show, and we said one of the problems with Batman as he is there is a lack of good villains. I just want to repeat that to let that sink it in. One of the problems with Batman as he is there is a lack of good villains. Batman has a lack of good villains. I mean, sure, he's only opposite some of the most iconic comic book villains in history. Bane, Joker, Scarecrow. But let's forget about all of that, because he goes on, you've got Catwoman, you've got Poison Ivy, you've got Harley Quinn, but it would be really good to have more female villains. Okay, so let's assume this is a brain fart, right? Like, good villains. I am a modern day feminist. All I can think of is women terms. And, well, there's no good women. Except Catwoman and Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, etc. But we needed more of those. You don't even have Poison Ivy. And on top of my head, I said we never really could figure out exactly what to do with the Penguin, what the gimmick for the Penguin would be. What if we gender flipped the Penguin? Now, you did figure out the gimmick of the Penguin. The Penguin is a big-time mobster. His gimmick is birds. Penguins, see? It's kind of in the name. He's malformed, and his vile exterior leads to a vile interior as well. He's a twisted reflection of Gotham in many ways. But okay, let's assume you just couldn't figure out any good villains, right? Okay. Talia al Ghul, maybe? That's... Just to the top of my head, excellent villain, complex, motivated, she is driven, determined, sexy, and she is ambivalent as well. No, I'm not ambivalent, but morally a bit grey there. Is she Batman's lover? Is she Batman's enemy? Does she care more about Batman than her father? What about the overall mission, etc.? But okay, I hear. It's too early on in Batman's career. He's not going to have her attention yet. Fair enough. Lady Shiva, then. You gather much the same kind of generalistic energy there, except considerably more evil, but maybe still a little bit too high flying. What about one from the original series? Red Claw. Big, muscled Dommy-Mommy. It's 2024. This character would be a hit and a half with the left, the right, and the center at this point. You literally could not miss with this one, and she is from Batman the Animated Series as well, doubling, tripling, and quadrupling down on the reasons why you should pick her. Or female ventriloquist. There's another interesting one. The ventriloquist was always an interesting question of, is he actually used by the dummy, or is he mad? Does the dummy have special powers? What's going on here? Can this person be rehabilitated, or is the dummy itself actually magical and evil? And again, in a Caped Crusader, where you introduce an actual ghost, that is only an even more interesting question, isn't it? Or let's assume you want something even more old school and pulpy, right? Roxy goddamn Rocket. My point here is, you are swimming in female villains for Batman to choose between. Swimming in them. You could reach back in the DC comic database and pick villains for other characters if you so chose. You have a nigh on infinite quantity of female villains to cover every single scenario you could possibly dream of, but instead you were like, I never could figure out what to do with the Penguin. He doesn't really have like a shtick or anything. He doesn't have a gimmick besides the penguins and the iceberg and the gambling and all of that nonsense. None of that, which most of you kept, by the way. So let's just gender flip him. Because we never could figure out exactly what to do with the Penguin, what the gimmick for the Penguin would be. What if we gender flipped the Penguin? How does that add a gimmick to the Penguin? What? Explain to me here. How does this make the character better? What does this add to the character? What does this even change meaningfully that is worth making the gender flip? What? There is nothing. It is just, hey, gender flip Penguin. Aye. And, well, again, it was a fun reversal as a fan. You think you know so much about Batman's world, and then you see something you didn't expect. Because it isn't a part of Batman's world. And Tucker, that was the mission statement for the show in general, to do something that harkened back to the original, but flip it. We've seen live-action and animated versions of Batman on TV. This, too, is like the final hammering home of my previous statement, that this was a deliberate falsehood. This was an attempt, in essence, to gaslight you, to be, oh, hey, it's Batman, the animated series. Isn't that exactly what you want? Don't pay attention to the corpse beneath the rug there. I promise we'll sweep that out of the way before you really need to sit down on it. It's okay. Don't worry about that. Oh yes, it happens to be the body of Batman, but details, eh? That is what this was. Batman Caped Crusader was a deliberate attempt at subterfuge to poison pill your ass by holding it up to you, facing it like, hey, medicine. Look at it. It's exactly what you wanted. Now swallow the ideology. Swallow the gender flip penguin. Swallow Batman being a side character in his own show. Swallow the lie that Batman has no good villains. Swallow the lie that there just aren't enough female villains for us, and so we have to gender flip the penguin. Swallow. No, don't want to. In fact, I think in unison we have pretty much rejected the little pill and hopefully vomited on them as well. With any luck, this will be the death knell of any future Caped Crusader. You tried to trick your audience, and hey, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, it would probably have worked because we were so used to desperately accept any crumbs that fell off your table, any excess. Oh, hey, at least they did this. At least there's this little thing in here. This tiny little bit, and I myself even have been guilty of that, but no longer. We are in the charge of culture now. We are the ones who have determined the new culture, and you either create something we actually like, or you flop. Simple as. So, how about you return to the drawing board, Bruce, and maybe give us a Harley Quinn a bit more like the one we actually liked and applauded you for creating to begin with. Just a thought. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.